She was just a child trying to save her dying mother. But when she knocked on the door of a billionaire's estate and saw a framed photograph on his wall, her entire world shattered. The woman in that picture was her mother, young, radiant, and smiling beside a man she'd never seen before. "Why is my mom in your house?" she whispered. What he said next would unravel a 13-year lie that destroyed 3 lives. The summer heat was merciless that afternoon in Silver Lake, one of those days where the sun felt like it was personally punishing the poor. 14-year-old Sofia Martinez dragged her feet along the scorching pavement, her bare soles already blistered and calloused from weeks of walking these streets. In her arms, she clutched a weathered cardboard box filled with handmade pastries, cinnamon rolls her mother had taught her to make before she became too weak to stand. Sofia's stomach hadn't seen a full meal in 2 days. Her throat was dry, her lips cracked, and every step sent sharp pains shooting up her legs. But she didn't stop. She couldn't. Because at home, in their one-room apartment that reeked of mildew and medication, her mother lay dying. Cancer. Stage 4. The kind that devoured everything: savings, hope, and time. Their story wasn't unique in the forgotten neighborhoods of the city. No insurance. No family to turn to. Just a teenage girl and her fading mother, clinging to each other as the world moved on without noticing. Sofia's father? She'd been told he died before she was born. A construction accident, her mother said. No details. No pictures. Just a closed chapter that was never to be opened. So Sofia walked. Door to door. Mansion to mansion. Through neighborhoods where people spent more on their dogs' grooming than her mother's monthly medicine. Most ignored her. Some called security. A few pitted her enough to buy a single pastry just to make her leave faster. But Sofia never stopped. Because giving up meant watching her mother die without a fight, and that was something she'd never do. That's when she saw it, towering gates of wrought iron and gold, guarding an estate that looked like something out of a movie. The main house was a modern architectural masterpiece, all glass and white stone, surrounded by manicured gardens that probably required a full-time staff. Sofia had walked past wealthy homes before, but this was different. This was the kind of wealth that made you feel invisible just by looking at it. She stood there for a long moment, staring through the bars. Part of her wanted to keep walking. People this rich didn't buy pastries from street kids. They had private chefs and imported delicacies. But another part of her, the desperate, exhausted part, whispered that maybe, just maybe, someone inside had a heart. Sofia pressed the intercom button, her finger trembling. Silence. Then a crackle of static. Yes. The voice was male, deep, and carried the kind of authority that came with power. I'm selling pastries, sir. Homemade. Would you like to buy some? For my mother. She's sick and... The intercom went silent. Sofia waited, her heart pounding. She'd been rejected so many times today that she was already preparing to walk away. But then the gates began to move, opening with a mechanical hum that sounded like the gates of heaven themselves. A man appeared at the entrance of the house, and Sofia's breath caught. He was tall, probably in his late 30s, with olive skin, sharp features, and dark hair that was graying at the temples. He wore an expensive linen shirt and tailored pants, the kind of effortless elegance that only money could buy. But it was his eyes that struck her, dark brown, almost black, and carrying a weight of sadness she recognized all too well. "Come in," he said, his voice gentler now. "It's too hot for you to stand out there." Sofia hesitated. She'd been taught never to enter a stranger's home. But something about this man didn't feel dangerous. He felt sad. Like someone who understood suffering even if he lived in paradise. She stepped through the gates, her dirty feet leaving prints on the pristine stone walkway. The man noticed but said nothing. Instead, he gestured for her to follow him toward the house. "Wait here in the foyer," he said. "I'll get my wallet." But Sofia couldn't help herself. The front door was open, revealing an interior so breathtaking it seemed unreal. Marble floors stretched endlessly. A chandelier that looked like it cost more than her entire neighborhood hung from the ceiling. Modern art decorated the walls, the kind of art that Sofia had only seen in textbooks during the few years she'd managed to stay in school. Her eyes wandered, drinking in every impossible detail. And then they stopped, frozen. Locked on a single photograph hanging in an ornate gold frame on the wall of the entrance hall. The world tilted. The photograph showed a younger version of the man who'd just let her in. He was wearing a tuxedo, smiling at the camera with genuine happiness, an expression so different from the sadness she'd seen moments ago. But it wasn't him that made Sofia's heart stop. It was the woman beside him. She wore an elegant emerald gown, her dark hair styled in soft waves, her smile radiant and full of life. Around her neck was a delicate silver locket with a tiny sapphire stone, the same locket Sofia's mother never took off even now, even when she could barely lift her hands. The woman in the photograph was her mother. Not someone who looked like her mother. Not a distant relative. It was Lucia Martinez, Sofia's mother, young and healthy and happy in a way Sofia had never seen her. Standing beside a man she'd never mentioned. At an event that seemed to belong to a different lifetime. A different world. Sofia's knees buckled. She grabbed the wall for support, her pastry box falling to the floor, cinnamon rolls scattering across the pristine marble. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." The man returned, wallet in hand, but stopped dead when he saw where Sofia was standing. The color drained from his face. The wallet slipped from his fingers, landing with a soft thud on the floor. For a moment, neither of them moved. They just stared, Sofia at the photograph, the man at Sofia. "Where did you get that picture?" Sofia's voice came out strangled, barely human. "That's my mother. That's my mom. Why is she in your house?" The man's mouth opened, but no words came out. He took a step closer, his eyes searching Sofia's face with an intensity that made her want to run. But her legs wouldn't move. "What did you say your name was?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "Sofia. Sofia Martinez." Something broke in the man's expression. His face crumpled, and he had to steady himself against the wall. "Martinez," he repeated, the word sounding like a prayer or a curse. "What's your mother's name?" "Lucia. Lucia Martinez." The man made a sound, something between a gasp and a sob. He covered his mouth with his hand, his eyes filling with tears. "That's impossible. Lucia is dead. She died 13 years ago. I was at her funeral. I buried her." Now it was Sofia's turn to stare. "What? No, she's not dead. She's alive. She's sick, but she's alive. We live together. It's just the two of us." "No." The man shook his head violently. "No, you're wrong. There was an accident. A car crash. My mother told me. She handled everything. The funeral, the burial, everything. Lucia died before we could get married." Sofia's mind reeled. "Married? Funeral?" None of this made sense. "Who are you?" she demanded. "Diego," he said, his voice breaking. "Diego Castellano. I was engaged to Lucia. We were supposed to get married. And then she died and I—" He couldn't finish. He slid down the wall until he was sitting on the floor, his head in his hands. Sofia felt like she was drowning. Everything she'd been told, everything she believed about her life, was fracturing like glass. "She told me my father died before I was born," she whispered. "She said he died in an accident. She never mentioned you. She never mentioned any of this." Diego looked up at her, and in his eyes, Sofia saw the exact moment realization dawned. "How old are you?" he asked. 14. "I'll be 15 in November." He did the math. Sofia could see him calculating, his face going through shock, disbelief, and then something that looked like devastation. 13 years, he whispered. "You were born 13 years ago. Right after they told me she died." The silence that followed was deafening. "Are you saying?" Sofia couldn't finish the sentence. The words were too big, too impossible. Diego stood slowly like a man in a trance. He walked toward her, stopping a few feet away, and just looked at her. Really looked at her. Sofia saw the moment he recognized his own features in her face, the shape of her eyes, the curve of her chin, the exact shade of her skin. "Oh my God," he breathed. "You're mine. You're my daughter." Sofia shook her head frantically. No, that's not possible. My dad is dead. My mom told me he's dead." "Then why is her picture in my house?" Diego's voice rose with emotion. "Why was she wearing my ring in that photograph? Why does everything about you, your face, your voice, even the way you stand, remind me of her?" Sofia felt the room spinning. This couldn't be real. This had to be some kind of mistake, some cosmic joke. She grabbed her fallen pastry box, crushing it against her chest like a shield. "I have to go," she gasped. "I have to go home. I have to ask her. I have to." "Wait, please." Diego reached out but stopped himself from touching her. "Please don't go. I need to understand. I need to know what happened. If Lucia is alive, if you're please just tell me where she is." But Sofia was already running. She flew through the open door, down the pristine walkway, through the golden gates that were still open. She ran until her blistered feet bled, until her lungs screamed, until the mansion was far behind her. And even then she kept running. Behind her, Diego stood in his doorway, watching her disappear into the afternoon heat. In his hand, he still held the wallet he'd meant to use to buy her pastries. But now, everything had changed. The girl who'd knocked on his door selling food to save her dying mother might be his daughter. And the woman he'd mourned for 13 years might be alive. His legs gave out, and he sank to his knees on the marble floor, surrounded by scattered cinnamon rolls and the shattered pieces of the life he thought he knew. Sofia burst through the door of their tiny apartment, her chest heaving, tears streaming down her face. Lucia was lying on the worn mattress they shared, an oxygen tank beside her, her frail body barely making an impression under the thin blanket. "Mom?" Sofia's voice cracked. "Mom, wake up. I need to talk to you right now." Lucia's eyes fluttered open, clouded with pain and medication. "Sofia? What happened? Why are you crying? Who is Diego Castellano?" The effect was immediate. Lucia's entire body went rigid. The color that was left in her face drained completely. Her hand flew to the locket around her neck, the same locket from the photograph. "Where did you hear that name?" Lucia's voice was barely a whisper. "I went to his house. I saw a picture of you. With him. You were wearing that locket. Mom, he said you were engaged. He said you died in a car accident. He said he went to your funeral. What is happening? Who is he?" Lucia began to cry, silent tears that rolled down her hollow cheeks and disappeared into the pillow. "Oh, Sofia. Oh, my baby. I never wanted you to know. I was trying to protect you." "Protect me from what?" "Mom, he thinks you're dead. And when I told him about you, when I told him my name and how old I was, he looked at me like—" Sofia couldn't say it. Couldn't speak the impossible thought out loud. But Lucia said it for her. "Like you might be his daughter." The words hung in the air like a blade. "Is it true?" Sofia's voice broke completely. "Is he my father?" Lucia covered her face with her trembling hands. "Yes. Yes, Diego is your father. And he never knew. He never knew I was pregnant. He never knew you existed." Sofia's legs gave out. She collapsed onto the floor beside the mattress, her world dissolving around her. "But you told me my dad died. You said it was an accident. You said." "I lied." Lucia's voice was raw with pain and guilt. "I lied to protect you. I lied to protect both of us. Oh, Sofia, you have to understand. I didn't have a choice." "What are you talking about? What choice?" And so, through tears and labored breathing, Lucia told her daughter everything. She'd met Diego at a charity event 7 years after his family had established their real estate empire. He was 28, she was 25. He was old money and Harvard education. She was a first-generation immigrant working 3 jobs. By every social standard, they shouldn't have even spoken. But they fell in love anyway, the kind of love that felt like destiny, like the entire universe had conspired to bring them together. They dated for 2 years. Diego proposed at the same charity event where they'd met, in front of hundreds of people, with a ring that cost more than Lucia had earned in her entire life. She said yes without hesitation. They set a wedding date. They looked at houses. They talked about children and growing old together. And then Lucia found out she was pregnant. She was overjoyed. Terrified but overjoyed. She planned to tell Diego that weekend during a romantic dinner she'd planned. But before she could, his mother, Victoria Castellano, the matriarch of the Castellano Empire, summoned her to the family estate. Lucia went, thinking Victoria wanted to discuss wedding plans. Instead, she found herself sitting across from a woman whose smile was colder than ice. "You're not suitable for my son," Victoria had said, her voice calm and clinical. "You're a nice girl, but you're not one of us. Diego is going to take over the family business, and he needs a wife who understands our world. You'll embarrass him, limit him, hold him back." Lucia had tried to argue, to explain that Diego loved her, that they were happy. But Victoria cut her off with a single raised hand. "I'm giving you 2 options, Victoria said. "Option 1, you take this check for $2 million and disappear. Never contact Diego again. Let him move on and find someone appropriate. Option 2, you refuse and I destroy you. Not just you but everyone you care about. Your mother, your siblings, your friends. I have the resources and the connections to ruin lives, and I won't hesitate to use them." Lucia had laughed. Actually laughed. "Diego would never let you do that. He loves me." Victoria's smile had sharpened. "Diego doesn't need to know. He won't need to know because you're going to disappear and I'm going to tell him you died. A tragic accident. Very sad. And he'll mourn you and eventually move on, just as he should." "That's insane. He'll investigate. He'll look for me. He'll never believe." Oh, my dear girl. You underestimate my reach. Victoria pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. Inside were photographs: Lucia's mother leaving her apartment, her brother picking up his children from school, her best friend leaving work. Accidents can happen to anyone at any time. Especially to people who have so much to lose and so few resources to protect themselves. Now, I'm going to ask you one more time. Which option will it be? Lucia had felt her world collapsing. This wasn't a bluff. Victoria's eyes held no warmth, no humanity. This was a woman who viewed people as obstacles to be removed or assets to be controlled. And Lucia, with no money, no power, and no protection, was just an obstacle. But there was one thing Victoria didn't know yet. One secret that changed everything. I'm pregnant, Lucia whispered. Victoria's expression didn't change. Then I suggest you take the money and use it to raise the child far away from here. Because if you fight me on this, I promise you that child will suffer for it. Take the money, disappear, and give that baby a chance at a safe, quiet life. Or refuse, and I'll make sure all of you pay the price. I want to tell Diego. At least let me tell him about the baby. Please. Absolutely not. You can never know. If he knows about the child, he'll try to find you, and then I'll have to follow through on my threats. Is that what you want? Your family destroyed and your child caught in the middle of a war you cannot win. Lucia had stared at that folder of photographs, her mother smiling, her brother's children laughing, completely unaware of the danger hovering over them. She thought about the baby growing inside her, innocent and helpless. And she made the hardest decision of her life. She took the money. She signed papers promising never to contact the Castellano family again. And she disappeared. Victoria staged a car accident. Closed casket funeral. Controlled every detail. Diego never questioned it because why would he? It was his mother, the woman who'd raised him, the woman he trusted above everyone except Lucia herself. Lucia had fled to the opposite side of the country, changed her name, and gave birth to Sofia in a free clinic with no one to hold her hand. She used the money carefully, trying to make it last, always moving, always hiding. She never touched social media, never contacted old friends, never risked anything that might lead Victoria back to them. And for 13 years she lived in constant fear. Fear that Victoria would find them. Fear that Diego would somehow learn the truth. Fear that her daughter would grow up and demand answers she couldn't safely give. The cancer had been the final cruel joke. As if life hadn't taken enough, it was now taking her body piece by piece. The money was long gone, spent on survival and Sofia's basic needs. They had nothing left. Just each other and the lies Lucia had built to keep them safe. I never wanted to lie to you, Lucia sobbed, clutching Sofia's hand. But I didn't know how to tell you that your father was out there, alive, but we could never see him. That he had no idea you existed. That his own mother was the reason we were torn apart. How do you tell your child something like that? Sofia was crying too, overwhelmed by the enormity of what her mother had endured. Does Diego really not know? About me? About any of this? He has no idea. Victoria died 2 years ago. I saw her obituary online. I thought about reaching out then, about finally telling Diego the truth. But by then so much time had passed. What would I say? How could I explain why I let him believe I was dead for over a decade? I convinced myself it was better this way. That he'd moved on. That disturbing his life would only cause more pain. But Mom, I met him today. He saw me. And when I told him how old I was, he knew. I could see it in his face. He knew I might be his daughter. Lucia's eyes widened with panic. Oh God. Sofia, you can't go back there. We need to leave. We need to disappear again. If he starts looking for us, if he starts asking questions. Mom, his mother is dead. She can't hurt us anymore. And he looked so broken. So sad. Like he'd been living with a wound that never healed. Don't you think he deserves to know the truth? It's been 13 years. He's probably built a new life. Why would he want us crashing back into it? Because that picture is still on his wall. Sofia's voice was fierce. That picture of you. Still there after all these years. That doesn't sound like someone who moved on, Mom. That sounds like someone who never stopped loving you. Lucia closed her eyes, fresh tears streaming down her face. I don't know if I'm strong enough to face him. To see the hurt in his eyes when he realizes what was stolen from us. From all of us. You're the strongest person I know. You survived 13 years of running and hiding and protecting me. You can survive this too. And maybe this time you don't have to survive alone. Diego couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't think about anything except Sofia's face and the impossible revelation that Lucia might be alive. He spent 3 days doing what he did best, using his resources, his connections, and his money to find answers. He hired investigators, reviewed birth records, cross-referenced databases, and finally he found them. Lucia and Sofia Martinez, living in a condemned apartment building in the poorest neighborhood of the city. The address felt like a punch to his chest. While he'd been living in luxury, drowning in wealth he'd inherited and multiplied, his daughter had been growing up in poverty. His Lucia, the woman he'd loved more than life itself, had been suffering alone. And he'd known nothing, done nothing, because he'd believed a lie. He drove to the address himself, dismissing the security team that usually accompanied him. This was too personal, too fragile for witnesses. The building was worse in person than he'd imagined, crumbling walls, broken windows, the smell of decay hanging in the air. This was where his daughter had grown up. This was where the love of his life had been hiding. He climbed the stairs to apartment 3F and knocked, his hand trembling so badly he almost couldn't form a fist. The door opened and there was Sofia. She looked different than she had a few days ago, less frightened, more resolved. "I knew you'd come," she said simply. "Is she here? Is Lucia here?" Sofia stepped aside, letting him enter the tiny apartment. And there, on a mattress in the corner, propped up with pillows and connected to an oxygen machine, was Lucia. She looked like a shadow of the woman in the photograph. Cancer had ravaged her body, stealing the curves and the color and the vitality. But her eyes, those eyes were the same. Dark and deep and filled with a love that 13 years of separation hadn't diminished. "Diego," she whispered, and the sound of his name on her lips after all this time brought him to his knees beside her mattress. "You're alive," he breathed, reaching out to touch her face as if she might disappear if he didn't hold on. "You're alive. Lucia, how? What? My mother told me you were dead. She showed me papers. There was a funeral. I mourned you. I've mourned you every single day for 13 years. I know. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Diego." And then she told him everything. Victoria's threats. The staged death. The pregnancy she'd discovered too late to tell him about. The 13 years of running and hiding and protecting their daughter from a woman who'd finally died 2 years ago, freeing them from the fear but leaving them trapped in the lies. With every word, Diego felt like he was dying inside. The grief he'd carried for 13 years hadn't been about loss, it had been about theft. His mother, the woman he'd trusted, had stolen everything from him. His chance to be a father. His chance to build a life with Lucia. His chance to watch Sofia grow from a baby to a young woman. Gone. All of it stolen by someone who claimed to love him. "She's dead," he said flatly. "My mother died 2 years ago. Heart attack. Quick, painless. Not enough suffering for what she did to us." "Don't say that," Lucia whispered. "Don't let this turn you into something bitter. She made her choices. Now we make ours." Diego looked at Sofia, standing in the doorway watching them with tears streaming down her face. His daughter. His flesh and blood. She had his eyes, Lucia's smile, and a strength that must have come from surviving 13 years of poverty and uncertainty. "Come here," he said to her, his voice breaking. "Please come here." Sofia crossed the room slowly and sat down beside him. Diego pulled her into a hug, holding his daughter for the first time in her life. "I'm sorry," he sobbed into her hair. "I'm so sorry I wasn't there. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. If I had known, nothing could have kept me away. Nothing." "I know," Sofia whispered back. "It's not your fault. None of this is your fault." They held each other and cried, 13 years of loss pouring out in waves. Lucia watched them, her own tears falling silently, and for the first time since she'd taken Victoria's blood money and run, she felt like maybe, just maybe, she'd made the right choice in finally telling the truth. When they finally pulled apart, Diego wiped his face and looked at Lucia with determination. "I'm getting you the best doctors. The best treatment. Money is not an issue. Whatever you need, wherever we need to go, whatever it takes. Diego. No arguments. I've already lost 13 years. I'm not losing you again. I'm not losing either of you." He turned to Sofia. "Both of you are moving in with me. Today. Right now. I have more rooms than I could ever use, the best medical facilities money can buy, and 13 years of love to catch up on. Please, let me do this. Let me finally be the man I should have been all along." Lucia and Sofia looked at each other, a silent conversation passing between them. Finally, Lucia nodded. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, yes. I'm tired of running. I'm tired of being alone. If the offer is real, it's real. It's the most real thing I've ever said." The DNA test results came back a week later, though everyone already knew what they would say. 99.9% probability of paternity. But Diego insisted on having it in writing, something official and undeniable. He'd been lied to for 13 years. He needed proof that this at least was truth. When the results arrived, he called Sofia into his study. She came nervously, still adjusting to life in a mansion where her bedroom was bigger than her old apartment. "You wanted to see me, Dad?" The word made Diego's heart skip every time. "Yeah, I did." The test results came. He watched her face cycle through nervousness, fear, and then relief when he smiled. "We knew, didn't we? But now it's official. You're my daughter, Sofia. Legally, scientifically, undeniably mine." Sofia threw her arms around him and Diego held her tight. "I always wondered what it would feel like to have a father," she said. "I used to imagine it when I was little. But this is better than anything I imagined." Over the following months, the mansion transformed. Lucia's medical treatment was aggressive and exhausting but effective. The cancer was responding. She gained weight, color returned to her cheeks, and some days she even had the energy to walk through the gardens Diego had redesigned specifically for her, filled with the same flowers she used to love 13 years ago. Sofia enrolled in the best private school in the city. She joined the art club, made friends, and for the first time in her life, didn't have to worry about where her next meal would come from. But she never forgot where she came from. Once a month, she insisted on going back to her old neighborhood with boxes of pastries, not to sell but to give away freely to families who needed them. Diego cut back his work hours dramatically, prioritizing time with his daughter and the woman who'd never stopped being his soulmate. They went on walks, played board games, watched movies, did all the mundane, ordinary things that families do, things Diego had been denied for 13 years. One evening, about 6 months after Sofia had knocked on his door, the three of them sat on the terrace overlooking the city. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Sofia was sketching in a new art pad Diego had bought her. Lucia was reading a novel, her oxygen tank finally gone, her body stronger every day. Diego watched them and felt something he thought he'd never feel again: peace. "Can I ask you something?" Sofia said suddenly, looking up from her sketch. "Anything," Diego replied. "Do you ever wonder what our lives would have been like if she'd told you the truth from the beginning? If we'd been together the whole time?" Diego considered the question carefully. "Sometimes. But then I think about who you've become, how strong, how compassionate, how resilient, and I wonder if you would be the same person if life had been easier. You've survived things that would have broken most people. That makes you extraordinary." "Mom made me who I am," Sofia said, looking at Lucia with love and gratitude. "Yes, she did. She protected you when I couldn't. She gave you everything she had even when it wasn't much. She's the strongest person I've ever known." Diego reached over and took Lucia's hand. "I lost 13 years with you both. I can't get that time back. But I can make sure we don't waste a single moment from now on." Lucia squeezed his hand, tears glistening in her eyes. "I love you. I never stopped, even when I thought I'd never see you again. I love you too. Both of you. My family." Sofia smiled and went back to her sketch. When she finished, she showed it to them: 3 figures sitting together on a terrace, a sunset behind them, and the words, "Where we were meant to be," written in elegant script at the bottom. It hung in the entryway of the mansion from that day forward, right next to the old photograph of Diego and Lucia in their younger days. Past and present. Loss and redemption. Lies and truth. The woman in the frame had come back to life, and with her, she'd brought the daughter Diego never knew existed. Together, they built something new from the ashes of what Victoria had tried to destroy. And 13 years of stolen time could never diminish the love that had survived it all. If this story moved you, if it made you feel something real, don't just scroll past it. Share it with someone who needs to hear that truth always finds a way back to the surface, no matter how deeply it's buried. Subscribe and follow for more stories that remind us why family, love, and truth matter more than anything, especially in a world that tries to tell us otherwise. Because somewhere out there, someone else is living their own version of this story, searching for answers, and they need to know they're not alone. Hit that subscribe button. Share this video. And let's keep telling the stories that matter. Thank you for watching, and remember, love always finds its way home.